Hey everyone, Paulie here with HardDrive Radio. We're sitting down with Justin Benlolo of BRKN LOVE. Man, thank you so much for doing this interview today. I'm already having a great time.
Of course, me too.
I want to get into some of the tunes, and you got 2 songs out right now that people have heard.
Yep.
And let's start with the single that everyone's playing right now, which is Shot Down. What can you tell me about putting this song together?
I mean, this song kind of came together pretty quick. I mean, I remember writing it in one day.
Wow.
You know, I mean, we were in the San Fernando Valley in California. I was living out in LA at the time. And it was just deathly hot. Of course, You're in the bottom of the valley. And I kept thinking about that all day, and it sort of inspired that lyric, you know, shot down at the bottom of the valley. And it was pretty literal for the scenario. But we just sat together and, you know, played a bunch of big riffs, and it sort of came together real quick. And we wanted something that just kind of started and just rolled over, you know, just like a train hitting you for like 2.5 minutes. Because at that point, I didn't have another song for my record that did that. And it was sort of an homage to like a lot of my influences and, you know, big riffs, screamy vocals sort of thing. And it just came together really, really quick and pretty, like, I want to say we didn't overthink it when we did it, you know? It just kind of flowed out. And it's the demo is pretty much the exact same as what ended up on the record, actually. There's really not a lot changed, you know?
When you listen to a song like that, you know, I don't know how long it's been since you've recorded it now, but are you the kind of artist who's like always trying to refine things and you want to go back and like maybe if I just tweaked it a little more here and there, or once it's done, is it just done for you?
I mean, of course, I think every artist has that. You know, you always do something and go, oh man, I wish I could have done that better. Or, you know, you get stuck in this sort of cycle of this sort of negative thinking where you never think it's good enough. But, you know, eventually you need somebody to just go, hey, shut up. Like, this is fine. We're just going to commit to it. You know, and obviously, like we said earlier, I have commitment issues, you know, especially with music. And it's hard to accept that something is as good as it's going to be. So of course, I listen to my record all the time and go, oh man, like this could have been better. Maybe I didn't sing this as good as I could. But if I kept doing that, we would have never finished, you know? So I'm ultimately happy with the result. But of course, there are things that still bother me.
And I think it also comes down maybe to having a good producer who tells you when it's time to step away, because they can see that it's starting to go a little off the rails.
Oh, absolutely. And that was very fundamental to the process, you know, because our producer would just be like, hey, that's it. I'm like, we just did 2 takes. He's like, no, stop. That was great. And you just kind of trust them because that's what they're there for. And it definitely made it a lot easier on us, for sure.
Now, you guys just put out a second song last week. It's called Papercuts. Mm-hmm. What can you tell me about putting that one together and maybe where your mind was at when you were writing it?
Well, that one was a little bit more emotional, I want to say. It came from a darker place. And I wanted to say something, you know. It kind of deals with all those themes of, you know, angst and depression and loneliness and all that kind of stuff. And when I wrote the song, it was just something that needed to come out. And we actually didn't finish it when it went into the studio. So it's Shot Down was done. Yeah. But Papercuts was something that was just kind of halfway finished. And we sort of cultivated it very quickly. I remember going home one night after laying down like half the instrumental and just sitting in my bed with my guitar, figuring out the rest of the song. And it turned out to be okay. Apparently the producer said it was all right. So we show up the next day and we just trucked through, and it was great. And ultimately I'm really happy with the result.
As you should be. I mean, I dig it. It's a great song. Perhaps inspired by a little real life experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You want to call anybody out? You fucked up, huh?
Hey, it's really calling myself out, to be honest with you, you know? I mean, I think we're all our own worst enemies. So that's really more about myself than anybody else. But it can be targeted to some people. I mean, there's little bits and pieces you grab from, and people inspire certain things here and there. You know, you can't really totally nail down when you're writing from that standpoint exactly who it's about. But most of the time, I like to personalize things and kind of make the lyrics more about myself than somebody else. Just for other people to connect to it more, you know, so they can hear it and self-reflect and feel pain and sorrow, you know?
It's a happy album. It totally
It is a happy
is.
album. It totally is. It's about perseverance, you know? It's about being stronger, and it's about getting through, you know? It's not sulky, like, woe is me sort of attitude, you know? And that's not the idea at all. It's supposed to be cathartic, and it's supposed to help you sort of get out of whatever funk you're in, you know?
So talking about, self-reflection and looking in on yourself, I want to ask about the song I See Red, because I feel like that's definitely another one of those angry at yourself kind of tunes.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, the lyrics are sort of self-explanatory in that one, you know? I mean, it's just being angry, and you know, some of these songs were written a while ago, and I'm only 21 right now for everybody watching. I know I have a beard, so I might look like a man.
It worked for me at that age too.
But I'm a boy in like a man shell right now. And at the time I was an angsty teenager, you know, and that's sort of how I channeled how I felt, you know. Like most musicians, I didn't feel like I had a voice except for music was that. And that song again deals with those sort of you know, feelings of anger and anguish and existential suffering, you know. And it's just me getting it out, basically. It's not about anything specific, more so about myself, you know.
One of the things I always enjoy about music is, you know, that cathartic property of it is that you can really kind of work through your feelings in a way that is beautiful, and like how some of the most amazing art can come from some of the most darkest places. If you don't think about it too hard, it seems very horrible. Like, here's all this pain that I've experienced, please enjoy it. But anybody who, you know, actively listens to music and enjoys it and consumes it in the way that I feel like most artists intend for their music to be consumed can understand about working through those feelings. Is there anything that you think would be off limits, or that you wouldn't be able to work through musically?
I mean, you know, it depends how serious of an issue you're dealing with. I mean, I think that thankfully I've been okay, and I have thankfully not dealt with experiences as such, but music has helped just whatever I've had to deal with. It's been an outlet for me. Obviously for some people it's not enough, and that's unfortunate, but that's the reality. But I could just, I'm just doing what I can for myself, basically, and hopefully it helps other people too.
I want to ask you about two more tracks that I've heard so far. The first being Flies in the Honey. That's a really fun one for me. I find myself stomping along, singing along really, really easy. Tell me about putting that one together.
That was also just probably the last song that was actually written for this record, I want to say. And again, it came together pretty quick. I don't like to linger on things. When I start something, I just want to finish it, because then it just sits around for a while and you never get back to it and you second guess it. You just got to commit to the experience. And that was sort of a jab at like pharmaceutical drugs and all that kind of stuff, and seeing a bunch of my friends in university and high school sort of get messed up on things that are getting prescribed so easily, like candy from their doctors, you know, and seeing how it really, really affected their lives and everybody else's around them. And that was sort of me just taking a jab at that sort of ideology and the industry, I guess you could say. And Flies in the Honey is sort of like, you know, if you give the kids whatever they think they need, they're going to jump on it because they're being told that they need it. It's like, you know, you put out honey, the flies are going to come to it. So it's, you know, I just ruined what the song is about. So now when it goes on Genius, my words will be directly quoted from this interview. But there you go.
Sorry, guys. No, that's good, though. I mean, there are artists who don't like to talk about what their songs are about, and that's perfectly fine. And I just like to see, you know, if there's something they're trying to say with a song, if they want to say it in a different way besides writing it in a song. I mean, that's a good answer, too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind it. I mean, there's a certain amount of ambiguity yes. that you can keep, and I feel like with songs, it's like you're sort of writing it down already, one way or another, in whatever context, and you have a message, and it's like, you can make people think, but if it's not super ambiguous, like John Lennon or something like that, I don't see the harm in just telling people what it's about, because it's going to end up on a bunch of things or forums or whatever, websites and stuff, where people are going to decode it to the point where they might get it totally wrong, and it might actually bother me, So I don't mind that,
It's funny too. I mean, thinking about listening to music in this day and age, where you have, the internet, where it's literally changed everything. And talking about the Beatles, fans of the Beatles, I mean, there are still discussions going on about what they meant, when they wrote this line. And these days, where you have an entire community of people like at your end of your fingertips who can dissect every song as soon as it comes out. Right. I mean, does it kill some kind of the mystery for you a little bit?
Yeah, I think it does, actually. I was just going to say, because back in that time, you couldn't, I don't even know if you can get the lyrics at that time. Yeah. You had to sort of listen to it and just...
Well, you had to buy the album. That's how you got the lyrics.
That's right.
Buy records.
Well, I guess I wouldn't know, because I was born in the late 90s, so
I won't hold that against you.
Yeah, I was brought up with the internet, so I don't know what it's like to hear a song and then have to remember the words, or like go to the dude at the record store and like sing it to him to be like, oh, do you know this song? And he'd be like, oh, aisle 4 or whatever. But I think it does kill some of the mystery, and it kills the sort of whole vibe of it, because now you feel like you see what your artist is eating, your favorite artist is eating for breakfast or something. Yep. They just put it on like Instagram stories or something like that. It's like that's almost too personal for me. It sort of ruins the larger than life, like the larger than life idea we used to have about like all those big rock bands. And I think the reason they used to go to those levels of fame is because we didn't know anything about them, and you had to sit around and just listen to the music, because that's all you had. Or maybe you got like a radio interview every once in a while, or you get to see their show, and that's it. Now it's like we know everything about everybody's lives, and to an extent I think it's like positive, because it gives us more of an outreach, and we can connect with people at any time, anywhere in the world. But I think it kills the mysticism and the ambiguous nature of artists and musicians. And yeah, that's all I really have to say about that.
I think to perfectly illustrate your point is, one of the bands you listed in the first segment that inspired you, and Kiss. Yeah. And Kiss were these legendary figures, and you didn't know anything about them. You didn't even know what their real faces looked like until they released that album where they, took all the face paint off. Right. But that it's hard to achieve something like that in today's day and age. And like even a band like Ghost, where they pulled it off for a long time. Yes, they did. Eventually, like as soon as somebody had an idea of who Papa really was and it was out there, like it just unraveled. And that lawsuit didn't do him any help either. But now Tobias can walk around and everyone's, oh hey, it's the Ghost guy. But for a long time, that mystery was preserved, and that's what was exciting about the band, is you didn't know anything about him.
Totally, and I was so bummed when I figured out his name was Tobias and all this stuff, and because I'm a Ghost fan as well. Because it's sort of it is paying homage to Kiss in my mind. I think it's kind of directly associated with that kind of costumes. Absolutely. And the shock rock kind of thing, and part of the attraction to me at first was being like, oh wow, these guys are completely like mysterious. You don't know what they look like. You don't know who they are as people. It's like they really did it right aesthetically from the get-go, and it just gave them these like huge personas and this just sort of cult like following. And I totally saw him a bunch of times, before I knew who he is, and now I don't hate him because I know him, but it is directly associated with that point, that the mysticism is sort of, it's impossible to remain mysterious now.
At this point, yeah. Thanks, Internet. But, it's a great thing in a way. And we've gone completely off the rails. We're supposed to be talking about you and your music, and we've just started to nerd out instead. But deal with it. That's what we're talking about now. Let's steer the conversation back to you. Tell me about, naming the band, Broken Love. Yeah. Where did that come from?
We were struggling with a name for a long time. And what actually had happened, if I'll tell you I'll just tell you what actually happened, without being mysterious, because like mysticism is dead.
Mysticism is dead. That's the takeaway from this interview.
So what I'll say is, me and my manager were sitting in a coffee shop off Sunset Boulevard, and I just wrote down like all my favorite records, like all their names, some of my favorite songs, and we did like sort of like drawing lines, like taking the first word of this and the other, like the back half of this, and then just putting them together. And eventually we just ended up with Broken Love. And I think that even when we made that connection, it sort of resonated with me, who I am as a person, the deeper message within the songs. You know, I think it just, as a whole, it kind of encompassed the whole idea of the music and who I am. So it ended up working out pretty good. And we obviously abbreviated it, so it's...
Well, yeah, I was going to ask about if there's significance behind the spelling. It was BRKN.
Well, I thought that's what the cool kids were doing now, you know? Yeah. No more vowels.
No.
You know, and I also like the 4
Replace
and
your
4.
A's with V's.
Totally.
That's how you do it now.
Although people do think we're called Brooklyn Love sometimes, but it's broken, just to like clarify that.
Brooklyn Love is the hipster cover band that follows you guys
absolutely,
around. Yes.
Right? Mustaches and stuff, you know? But why would I name my band Brooklyn Love? Like, I'm from Toronto, you know? That's weird.
That's totally weird.
So, like, anyways. But it ended up working out, and I'm really happy with it, you know? Yeah.
We're talking Broken Love. This is Paulie with HardDrive Radio. And Justin.
Hey.